This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Thomann. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Mettle Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome. Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle Podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle Podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. Hello and welcome back to the Mental Mettle Podcast. I've got another exciting episode for you today. I'm your host, Coach Thomann, and Thank you for listening, sharing, liking, subscribing, sending in the comments, the emails. I love all of it. I love the suggestions for guests. I love the comments on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, on all those. So if you can like and share and make comments and all those things, it really helps the whole algorithm and everything. And I love that. And I just love knowing that people are listening and paying attention. So I really appreciate that. A couple things just a couple reminders about the show and just some of the things of what I do. I always get into this and I realize I have, new listeners every week and I hate to repeat stuff, but then I'm also gotta refocus on what I'm doing here and what the point is. And it's a good point for me to remind everybody what this podcast is about. And I started at it with aiming at coaches, but I have a lot of parents that listen and I have some athletes that listen as well. But the whole point of the podcast is to help adults find better ways to help student athletes face adversity. And then, along the way, I think it helps the adults as well. That's, it's good if it's good for the athletes, it's good for us adults. But the whole idea is to help. I hate to, talk down about some of the old school ways, but, some of the old school way of how we developed mental toughness in athletes is not really working anymore. The old school of just heaping more adversity and hoping that they get tougher. It doesn't work all that well anymore. Maybe it never did. Maybe it just kids didn't have other options and we just forced them into things, but that didn't mean that they weren't mentally affected by it. I feel like there's a lot of very, very successful coaches from the old days that also created some very harsh relationships and left some animosity with a lot of parents and kids. And we can talk about, whether or not people need to be tougher. And I think they do, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And hopefully you're not trying to create mentally tough people and just leaving a wake of animosity and anger in your way, behind you, because that's not the goal either. I think that you can create some toughness in people with kind of a negative mindset, but not everybody is responsive to that. Whereas I think you can always develop toughness with positivity. And I think everybody responds to that. It's an idea I'm still working on how to better say that and how to better create it. But I think it's, personally, I think it's a noble goal to be working on, is how to develop that toughness through positivity. And again, that whole idea of the Mental Mettle podcast, mettle is that ability to face adversity in a spirited way, in a very positive way. And if you hear my past podcasts, you'll hear that. And it's always something I'm leaning into on how to do that, how to how to create that toughness in a positive way. And I do that by listening to guests. And I've got, if you look back, I've got some really good coaches, some all sorts of different sports, from wrestling, baseball, basketball, football. I've got, people that have coached in junior high and high school and in college. Same with the players. I get some players on here, some high school and pro players and college players. And then I get, also get some experts, just content experts in here, people that are well-versed in the mental health field. I got some coaches, some other people on that just understand this stuff. And so if you're a first-time listener coming in, just look back at some of these podcasts, over 70 episodes here, and they're not dated. You can look back. It's not like, if we did one over a year ago, it's not like it's dated. This stuff is always, if you haven't heard it yet, it might be new ideas that you're getting. And like I said, I try not to repeat stuff, but that doesn't mean that I should, but there's some really good stuff in the past episodes. And of course, I have some individual solo episodes. I got a whole series for parents on how to, my ideas on how to develop a mentally tough athlete. So just be thinking about this, the goal of this podcast and who you can share it with, what you can listen, and the old episodes you can look back on. And then of course, I always like to try to remember, I forget this sometimes, this is a free resource I put out there. It's very much in line with my business, but this part is a free resource for me trying to push that idea of developing that mental toughness through positivity. And that's my goal. But then I also do this as a business. And I always like to remind people what I'm doing here, and the ways that if you read or listen to my podcast and you pay attention, then it's like, and you like that, then, hit me up and see how I can help you out. There's a few things that I do. The first one, you'll hear me talk them. Probably the bulk of my business is working with student athletes and using my ICF certification and using the coaching process, this process of asking inquisitive questions and curious questions and helping them get from point A to point B, taking a kid that used to like their sport or still love their sport, but are feeling anxiousness about it and not feeling the way they want around their sport. And we take that's their point A, and get them to where their point B is, which is usually developing more confidence and playing in a way that harnesses all their ability and lets them play at their potential. And that's that student athlete coaching that I do. It's a great process. I love working with the student athletes. I love the feedback I get from the players and the parents, and just the success we have on that. Anytime you have a question on that, all you have to do is just sign up for a free 30-minute session, and we just run through the details. And quite honestly, I'm going to be honest here. I'm not pushy on this, because I don't ever want to coerce somebody into being a client, because that's awful. Like, if we have a kid that does not want to be there for the sessions, we're not going to make any progress. We have to have a client that really wants to improve. And it's a lot more fun for me if they want to have that motivation to get better. And once we have that, and we make a lot of progress. I've had the occasional client in the past that parent made them sit in front of a computer or in person, and we try to have sessions about this. But if the heart's not there, it's hard to make progress. And that goes for absolutely anything. We have to have that motivation where we want to be. So that's the student athlete coaching. I also do team coaching. If I've got a coach, if you're listening to this, I show up and do group coaching for teams. I love doing this. It's fantastic. Most of that, I've done it in person and virtual, but it's so much fun to help them. It's a little bit like team bonding, but it goes so much deeper than that. It helps them some team bonding, but it helps them find common goals, common ideas, helps them understand each other better. We work on some potential team cancers and things that can get in the way whenever we're dealing with conflict, which we always have conflict in a season because that's, winning and losing, and athletics has conflict. So just some really good stuff and helping them learn their shared values and helping them, they can, rather than just having a slogan that you throw on a t-shirt and wanting them to, act like that, we come up with ideas that they all can get behind and mean something very personal to them. And we create these slogans and we put that on the shirt. We do things like that. And it works so much more when it comes from them and not from the coach or the coaching staff. And then the last thing I do professional development for educators. I come into schools and I do group coaching. I do keynote speaking, and then I also do group coaching virtually. Some of that is for coaches. You'll hear me talk about this all the time. The Ember to Inferno is all about helping coaches. It's a lot like the podcast, but it's more direct and got some real good ideas on how coaches can develop mental toughness in today's athletes. Great idea. But I also do a keynote speaking idea series for all educators called 100% Metal, and it acknowledges the fact that teaching is a very difficult profession anymore, and it helps create the mindset that an educator needs in order to not just survive, but thrive a year and feel good about what they're doing. Most educators get into the profession because they want to help people and they want to help young people learn and grow. And a lot of the outside factors make it so they forget that and don't enjoy their job. And the whole series, the 100% Metal, is about helping them foster their own mental toughness around their profession. And I really enjoy that. And that one's got a lot of my personal story in it and how I used to be an educator and some of the health issues that I had and some of the things I've learned and how that can apply. So I'm just putting all that out there this is the business that I do. And if you love this free resource that I put out there, then consider hiring me to work with an athlete, work with your team, come into your school, share this with somebody, if that's not you, that's, paying for that or in that situation, but somebody, a superintendent or a administrator or a teacher, share it with them. Be like, hey, check this out. I think you'd like this. I really appreciate that. Just any help I can get there would be really great. But let's get into today's episode. I've got a phenomenal guest, somebody I'm excited about having on. It's Jeremy Shubert. I've known Jeremy for a long time. We were college teammates. We haven't stayed in touch a lot, but I've followed his career, and I finally realized I'd need to get him on the podcast because his career has turned into a really, really good career. He's now the head coach at Central High School in Breeze, Illinois. He was an assistant there for years, but in the last 11 years, he's been the head coach. And in those 11 years, he has a record of 255 wins and only 88 losses, and he's won the conference title 9 of 11 years. And I mean, that's a tall order to do that well. Like he has a phenomenal program. He took a good program. He was part of that program, and he's just growing it even more. He had up until the last 4 years. He coached his own son, and while coaching his son for 4 years, they went 104-14. That's a fantastic record, and be able to do that with your son. Just a really good story there. His son's now at Murray State playing basketball. So Jeremy's very successful, got a lot of good ideas, and I want to share it with you, have this great conversation. So I'll talk with you. I'm going to put some stuff at the end after the interview and just talk about some of the things that I noticed that maybe can a little bit more concise with it and how you can use it. Yeah. So enjoy the episode with Coach Jeremy Shubert of Central High School in Breeze, Illinois.
Parents, is your athlete ready for the upcoming sports season? They might have the strength, the speed, and the skills, but without confidence, they could still struggle when the game is online. Skill and strength are great. They're necessary, but they're not used to their full potential without the right mentality. Confidence is key. It's the key to unlocking that full potential. And at Mental Mettle Coaching, I offer personalized sessions designed to build the confidence your athlete needs for a successful season. My proven techniques empower them to perform under pressure, both on the field and in life. Don't let a lack of confidence hold them back. Book a free session today and discover the power of confidence. Visit the website and get started on the journey to a more confident and successful athlete with Mental Mettle Coaching. Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching. Welcome back to the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and I'm here with my guest today, Coach Jeremy Shubert of Central High School in Breeze, Illinois. And Coach Shubert is also a former teammate of mine at Milliken. And I don't know, we've talked a couple times over the years, but it hasn't been all that much. I think I've always kept track of what you're doing, where you're going, what you're doing. And whenever I got your bio back, I was like, man, you've been killing it.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know about killing it, but it's been a good ride. There's no doubt about it. It's been a really, really good ride.
Yeah, and you mentioned you are how long now have you been at Breeze?
I'm getting ready to start my 27th year in education, my 26th year at Breeze. So I completed 25 years as a teacher and coach here at Breeze Central High School.
And you were assistant there for a while first, right?
Yeah, I started in 99, 2000, joined the Hall of Fame coach Stan Eagleson. At that time, we were, in that particular season, they just came off, a big upset of the number one state ranked team back in 98. And so they were kind of getting a little bit of flow going with the program, and I joined in, and it's been great. It was 14 years as an assistant coach. Started out with the sophomore team and then moved up to JV for about 10 years. And then in 2014, I became the head coach, and I'm getting ready to start my 12th year as the head basketball coach here at the school I've taught at for 25 years. So it's really a great place.
Anymore, 14 years as an assistant or the sophomore coach, and all that time, were you eventually wanting to be a head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I had when I started here in 99, 2000, I was the only teacher in the whole district, and we're just a high school district because we have and what really helps us is we have 8 feeder schools, 8 little small communities that feed into Central High School, and that's really key for us and our success. But at that time in 2000, I was the only teacher going back to school to work on a master's degree, and I actually started that a year after I graduated from Milliken. I started the summer the summer before I took the job here at Central with my master's, and I got my first master's degree in science ed. Then I got my second master's degree in administration in 2010. And I tried for a few jobs before I became head coach to be an administrator, and it just didn't work out. It just wasn't a good fit, or it just didn't work out in my favor. And it's not that I wanted to leave basketball. It's just I was ready to take on a little bit more on the education side. I wanted to still continue to coach, and it's getting to the point now where head coach of basketball, that's 12-month-a-year job, and it's tough to do an administrative job and be a head basketball coach at the same time.
I think
it can be done. It's tough.
Yeah, I think it's very few, and very few districts will actually allow you to do that in the time and the capacity to do that. But
absolutely, yeah.
But 14 years as an assistant before jumping into a head coach, with the way the coaching goes anymore, like you could have left and found a head coaching job at any point, I'm assuming, if that was your goal.
And I probably would have, but I guess that's kind of the way I was brought up. Not that change isn't good. Change can be good at times, but this was something I had in the back of my mind. I met my wife here at the school. She was the athletic trainer. We've been married for 22 years, sorry. And, met her here, and we built a house, and we started a family, and this was just a really good fit. I know if I was going to be an administrator, it was going to be at a local school district, and none of those seemed to pan out. And like I said, I never wanted to stop coaching basketball, and we just had a really, really good run. Got a lot of good parents, a lot of good people here, and it's a good place to be.
Yeah, you mentioned you have 8 feeder schools. Does that mean you have 8 eighth grade teams feeding into your high school program?
Yeah, that's correct. Now these schools are small for the most part. Clinton County, I grew up in Washington County, just south of here, but Clinton County is growing. These small towns. The town I live in, Aveston, just live on the outside of Aveston. There, it was about 800 people when I was playing basketball in high school. Now we're over 2,000. So people have been kind of flocked to Clinton County, and they're adding on to the grade schools. So when we say we get feeder schools, we do have 8. There's a Catholic high school in town as well, Mater Dei. So we kind of split some of the players, but at the same time, there's most years we're getting 15 to 20 freshman basketball players that try out for basketball, and that's a really, really good thing for a school of about 600. We're about 640 students.
That is a good thing and a bad thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. But our parents, the culture, COVID kind of messed everything up. But the culture at our high school since COVID has just been outstanding. We've been able to pass some or do some upgrades to our building. We put in a field house for the football team and the cheerleaders to practice in, during all parts of the season. Baseball team, our gym, we're getting ready to expand onto our gym. We put new classrooms in. It's just a lot of exciting things going on here. And we've been able to do it without having to raise taxes. So it's been very good for the community.
Well, when you mentioned that you say the culture is better since COVID, or it's good since COVID, I feel that, I don't know. I talked to a lot of coaches in a lot of places, and I feel like places have gone, like COVID kind of it was this breaking point, and some places got stronger after it, and some programs are really struggling after it. And I don't know the reason behind it, but it's definitely a seminal moment for a lot of programs, a lot of cultures.
I think you bring up a good point. Our administration, our Board of Education, they just made it a point, all of those things that our students, freshman through senior, and my son would have been a freshman that year in 2020, what they were, what they were cheated out of, education wise, experience wise, academic wise, to an extent, because they had to go to school in front of a computer screen. They just made it a part, not that we didn't put students first, we always have, but we've just made it an extra effort just to really cater to the students, do what we can. Our faculty is outstanding, and I think that carries over into all the sports programs, whether it's a fall, winter, or spring sport, and we've just made it a topic. We started a leadership team. We have some of our top student athletes in all classes. They meet together on Wednesdays during our advisory period, and they read books. one of the books they read, and I just read it again, is it's right here. It's called The Twin Thieves. Awesome book. It's a very easy read, only about 180 pages, just things about a football team going through an experience. They just need to get their culture, and just doing that and just making kids aware of, hey, there's people stepping up that are my age as leaders in the school. I kind of want to be like that. I'm going to emulate that. It's just really taken off, and our culture's just exploded. It really has, and it's really cool to be around.
Yeah, tell me more about. I like that. So when you talk about this leadership team, it's all ages, all sports? How many kids you got in this?
All ages, all sports. So I'm the head basketball coach, and I don't coach. I used to coach golf, but I don't coach any other sports here. We always nominate a couple kids from every class, and then once they come in as a freshman, they're on that committee until, the coaches get together and say, hey, maybe, we need to make an adjustment. But that usually doesn't happen. It's just with these kids coming to our basketball camps, where they come to our football camps, they come to all different types of things, come to our home games as grade school kids. We get to kind of know the kids. We know the kids as parents. We can kind of pick out which ones are going to be good leaders, just based on their GPAs and things that come in from the grade schools. And we invite them to be on there. It's been really good. I mean, a few students have said, hey, this is not for me, and we respect that. But then at the same time, these kids kind of take leadership, and that carries on to the court, carries on to the field, whatever it is and whatever sport they're playing. And all we do as head coaches is just try to lead them, give them a book to read, and just kind of talk about some tough concepts and some things that they need to do as leaders. And that's just carried over to success on the field.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned it was it's an awareness thing, and putting the information in front of kids and just letting them know they can do this, and also that you trust them to do it and how important it is. Like, I'm sure they're still kids. I'm sure they don't do everything right, and
right.
And nothing's, but it's giving them the opportunity and the awareness level around leadership and just the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. And something else that we've done, not that we never did this. I mean, our basketball camp has always been very well attended and everything, for little kids to get the exposure. But we do some academies where we bring in young kids and let them get an autograph for our high school basketball team, or they let them play a little one-on-one. Just bring those kids in on a Sunday afternoon and let them experience this, let them see our facility. It's just a lot of good things going on here.
You have to, I mean, you probably remember back to your days when you were a kid. You the guys you're looking up at, or the gals, for the women, and looking at these players as high school players when you're in like 5th, 6th grade, something like that. These guys were
they were your idols. Yeah.
Oh, your idols. And if you're not fostering that as a coach, and not just fostering it, but for your own leverage,
Absolutely.
if you're planning on being there long term, you have to do those things.
Those are some of the first things you have to do. And I've talked about it. You talked to a few coaches about it. Not that they're asking me what we do, but it's just some things where I think they were asking us what we do here. And for a coach to be somewhere 10 plus years, that's pretty good. For this day and age. And things have worked out. Our parents have been awesome, and administration. I always told myself, you got to surround yourself with great people, from the assistants, from the parents, former players. I now have 3 former players that have come back to the program that are helping me coach. We kind of always have some guys from every different generation. And when I got here, I was the young guy back in 2000, but now I'm the old guy on the staff, with just, about 7 more years to teach. And just looking at that, we've got, all of these kids that are with me, or all the guys that are with me, and I shouldn't call them kids, all my assistants have played for the program. That's just been, except for one, but his son has played in the program. So it's just a great mix. You gotta surround yourself with good people, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing it right. You get those kids coming up, and it's not that they don't have college idols and pro idols, but when they finally show up to your program and be part of your program, it's something that they really want to. It's a dream of theirs, right? Rather than being excited about leaving that, they're really excited about being there.
For sure. And I mean, I talked to had a family wedding in Cleveland, Ohio last weekend, and I talked to I grew up in Oakville, and from a little boy on, we went to every game, whether it was home or away. That's what we did. That's what mom and dad took me to. And, I had idols. In 1987, Oakville got second in state. And I can remember the guys. I played golf with one of the guys this past Wednesday that was on that team. Met one of the guys at this wedding, was on the team. And just talking to them about their experiences. I mean, I told them back in sixth grade, when I was in sixth grade in '87, you guys were my heroes. And I think you just try to see that. And I think these kids can appreciate that. And I just try to tell my players, hey, you're in these young kids' eyes. You need to do things the right way on the court as well as off the court. And it's been really good.
Yeah, and if we want to bring this conversation back to, what it means about mental toughness and doing the right thing and doing those things, I think a lot of times what comes out as mental toughness or doing the right thing on the court is it's all so predicated on why you're doing what you're doing. And if it means something to you, and that's where that culture matters so much.
Yeah, for sure it does. If, since I've been coaching, there's three things that go on the board. The first thing that goes on the whiteboard before every game is defense wins basketball games. And I'm a very defensive-minded coach. And like this past year, we held teams to 31 points. When you hold a team to 31 points, you're going to win a lot of games. We won 32. We won 32 of them. And the team really surprised me. I didn't think we were going to be as good defensively. Thought we were going to be better offensively, and we weren't. But tells you what I know sometimes. But I often tell the kids, good things happen to people that work hard. And we go at it hard in practice. We try to make it fun and enjoyable at the same time. But you got to make a good mix of it. And I always tell them tough teams win, and work ethic, attitude, and toughness are characteristics that this group has to have. And I try to lead by example. My son, was able to coach him for 4 years here, and over that period of time, I think he developed into a very good player. He's going to get the opportunity to play at Murray State Division I basketball. He's going to walk on. He just made that decision about 3 weeks ago. Just had his signing last week. And just to watch him now, he's got his first job. He's working out here at school for our maintenance staff. And just to hear all of the compliments from the administration, from the other maintenance workers, just how hard he's working out here, that makes me feel good. And then I hear about my other players. Oh, they're great working in the communities and everything. We want our guys to be more than just basketball players. We want them to be good citizens, good husbands, and good parents in the future, for sure.
I think that it's it's different now. We're in a different age, and when a kid plays a lot, if your kid wants to play a lot of basketball or whether it be a different sport, baseball, something like that, a lot of kids don't get when they're athletes, they don't get the opportunity to go work. Like, I don't know what you did, is like you grew up on a farm. I grew up on a farm. So I put a lot of time in working, doing different things that your son might not have had the opportunity to do. I know my son didn't, but they can develop that work ethic, and they should be developing that work ethic in the athletic endeavors that they have, so long as they've got the coach doing it the right way. And I think that's,
you're a role model, you're a coach, coaches are such role models for these kids. And, we've obviously have a daughter coming into high school as well. We just try to do things as parents the right way. And, I can't say that my son's helped me. He's probably helped me on the farm 5 times, and he's 18 years old, but at the same time, that's just not what he wants to do. But I think he watches me go about the way I, go through the day, how hard I work at different things, and how hard I work, just to make sure that, they get some of the opportunities that I wasn't able to get to have, just because there's more sports and there's more opportunities available now than there were in the early 90s. And he's watched me, and I think it's paid off.
Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching. Parents, is your athlete ready for the upcoming sports season? They might have the strength, the speed, and the skills, but without confidence, they could still struggle when the game is online. Skill and strength are great. They're necessary, but they're not used to their full potential without the right mentality. Confidence is key. It's the key to unlocking that full potential. And at Mental Mettle Coaching, I offer personalized sessions designed to build the confidence your athlete needs for a successful season. My proven techniques empower them to perform under pressure, both on the field and in life. Don't let a lack of confidence hold them back. Book a free session today and discover the power of confidence. Visit the website and get started on the journey to a more confident and successful athlete with Mental Mettle Coaching.
How do you? Well, first of all, I mean, you teach and you do. You said you do some dual credit stuff, which is a little bit more time consuming, right?
Correct.
You teach
As soon as we get done today, I have to finish up a class. I'm going to be able to teach anatomy and physiology dual credit here. And that's really something that's changed since COVID as well. Before, I think in education, the college experience where there's a lot of qualified high school teachers now. And even though I had 2 master's degrees, I still need to go back and get 11 more hours just in biology to be able to do this. And I'm finishing it up, this week actually. And going to be able to teach science. We got 2 science classes that are dual credit, biology 2 and anatomy and physiology. And my son's going to head to Murray State, going to leave on the 16th, and he's going to have 46 hours of dual credit. He's already going to be classified as a sophomore. So it's a really good thing financially for these kids.
Oh, it's absolutely. But what I'm trying to figure out is how you have time to do all this stuff.
I don't sleep.
I was going to say, because you're teaching dual credit, which is a lot more work. You're coaching basketball, which is a full-time gig, almost even the summers, and you still farm. It's a small farm, but you still farm your own acreage, and I don't know how you find time for all that. I mean, I know that you said you don't sleep much, but there's still only so many hours of the day and only so much daylight.
Yeah, you're right. But it helps me manage my time. I told somebody in church the other day. I said, once the week, not this week, but the last week. The last week was the first week all summer that I did not have one thing I needed to get done exactly. I got to haul some grain and things for the farm, but it's not something I have to get done. Where during the month of June, we had a strict schedule for basketball. My kids were involved in different things. My daughter plays select basketball, and she's got her workouts here at Central. And there was just something going on all the time. But that last week was the first week where I really didn't have something I had to do. And I didn't feel I was as productive because I didn't have that schedule, what I had planned. You got to be able to manage your time, and you got to be organized. And those are 2 things that I'm pretty good at, and that's how we get it done.
Well, you wouldn't be able to be a functioning human if you didn't manage all that. I think you would have broken by now, right?
Well, and I got a wife who's very understandable, and she, we went through a lot, right before COVID as well. She had breast cancer, and that really changed things. And it makes you kind of look at things a little bit differently when you got a loved one. And 23 years ago, I lost my mom to brain aneurysm. So, since those big events, you kind of look at things differently. Nobody's guaranteed tomorrow, and you got to do things that make you happy. And farming is my relief, kind of my release from basketball and from education aspect. But I love to be around kids. I love to be around basketball. And so things are really good right now. Things are good.
Yeah. I noticed you talked about, and I knew that had happened with your mom. But you still fund a scholarship for students in her name. Is that correct?
We do one. This was the 22nd year that we actually had the scholarship. 23rd year we presented scholarships, but 22nd year we had the benefit golf scramble yesterday. So when you sent me the email, that's what we had. We had that benefit, and it's just a great event. We got a picture taken. It's on Facebook with some of the recipients that come back to play in it. There was only 8 of them yesterday, but when we had the 20th anniversary, we had 16 past recipients, and then plus the 2 recipients that received it back in 2022, all come and play in that tournament. It's just a great honor. A lot of who I am today is because of her. I was the most important thing in her life for the 20. I guess I was 27 years old when she passed. So it's 23 years old when she passed, but still, I learned a lot from her, and I had 2 very loving parents, and was brought up the right way.
Yeah, I know how cheesy it can sound, but I think that one of the keys for life is just being able to. You have to take bad things are going to happen.
Sure,
right?
they are.
They're just and I think you have to just take those things that happen that are nobody's fault and just gain some perspective and find a way to use them for good somehow. It's not easy.
No, we get back to that leadership group. There's kids that have made mistakes in our leadership group. Mistakes are going to happen, and I think they've learned from it. There's times where I've started a basketball season without all my players just because of some bad decisions by some of the players, and they've learned from it, and our culture, I think, has been strong, from it and everything. And everybody makes mistakes, and if you learn from those mistakes, that's important.
Yeah. Let's get back into some hoops here. I want to chat I don't do a ton of X's and O's on this podcast, but whenever I see somebody, if you told me that you've been a head coach there 11 seasons, and in the 11 seasons you've won 9 conference titles, and you're doing it mostly with defense. You're holding teams to 31, or at least last year, right? That's mindset stuff, right? Defense is not. I know that you have skilled players, but sometimes the more skilled a player is, the harder it is to get them to want to play defense, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely makes sense. To be honest with you, growing up in Oakville, it's something you always want to do was play basketball for the Rockets. And, the coaches early on in me saw that I was a better defensive player than offensive player. And that's just kind of the mindset I approached it as. If we can shut a team down, hopefully we can score more than 35 points and we're going to win. We're going to win games. That's kind of the mindset I've always had. Just take my son, for instance, in his 4 years here, the COVID year, we got 15 games in, and he was on a really special team that year. We went 15-0. We won all 15 games, and we weren't able to have a postseason. I always just wonder, what would have happened that year, even though we didn't have a postseason. But, we moved on, looked past it, and turned out the next 3 years, we advanced to the sectional championship game all 3 years. Weren't able to win any one of them, so that's disheartening. But yet at the same time, get the experience to win 3 regionals, won 4 conference championships while he was here, 104-14 record. Just so much to be proud of and so much to look back on. And I think it's just leadership it's leadership from me, but it's also just the expectations that this program has established, that kids know that if they can play defense and they can listen and they can work hard, good things are going to happen. And we could turn around this year, because I've had 2 losing seasons in my 10 years as well. Those were tough seasons, but you learn from it and you move on. Hopefully we can build off of what we've established, because we're going to have a lot of new faces. I lost 8 seniors this last year, and of my top 10, 8 of them were seniors. So we're going to have a lot of new faces, but I think there's some kids that are ready to go and ready to rise up to the challenge.
So when you talk about the expectations, what are the Coach Shubert non-negotiables for this, whatever type of defense it is you're trying to play?
Well, that cell phone, we look at these cell phones all the time. This has been one thing that has kind of hurt with communication. So we always try to make our kids, communicate with one another. And, as a coach, we just tell them, try to be loud, even if it's the wrong thing, at least you're talking. And usually if you can get 1 or 2 kids to buy into that, and they see these seniors accept that, that's just really kind of been a snowball effect. And there's not anything that I say, hey, this is non-negotiable. I told you 3 things that go up on the board, before the season starts and before every game. Defense wins games. That's kind of our motto. Tough teams win, and you got to have a good work ethic, attitude, and mental toughness. And that's what's on the board, and that's kind of our foundations. we talk about rules. We tell our kids not to be in detention. That's never been much of an issue. The parents are outstanding. They support our programs. We have a 3-point club. We started for the first time. Our particular group was able to raise $9,000 for our team to help with our locker room renovations, just by the 3-point club that we did. And we don't score a lot of points, but just by the donations and things, it's really good stuff.
Yeah, it's that usually what I found out is, if you're holding, one of the reasons you're able to score or hold teams to 31 under is it's not like you're racking up 80 a game. I'm sure that you're in the lower end as well.
Well, no, getting back to that, like last year's team, we had 4 kids score 20 points and no more, just on 4 different times. Each player on last year's team had a 20-point game. We don't score a lot of points. It's just, it's not like we're methodical. That's not like I tell them, but that's just kind of the way. This is kind of the way things have worked out. I don't tell them we have to make 8 passes before we can score, but at the same time, they know what good shots are. I actually wanted our best shooter this past year to take more shots, and he passed them up. It's not that it cost us games. It's just, he thought he could get something better. So, but defense comes first, in the program for sure.
How much of an adjustment is it going to be in a couple of years with the shot clock for you?
We played in 2 shootouts this past year, and we actually played in 5 shootouts, but one of the shootouts over at the O'Fallon shootout, we had it. And I think there was one violation where we didn't really have a violation, but it was a situation where we had to kind of just rush up a shot. Other than that, we were able to break their press, get into they played zone. We were able to get some actions against the zone. Now, man-to-man, we haven't really seen, but that game, the shot clock wasn't too much of an issue for us. So I know it's coming, and that could be a situation where we have to, put in more quick hitters. But as long as our kids set screens and they take good shots, we're gonna be okay.
Yeah, I know it's a big argument and people talk about it, but I agree. I think that you can be methodical in 35 seconds and still kind of do what you want to do. It doesn't have to rush it.
Something else we've always talked about is the easiest shot in basketball is that layup, and then the second easiest shot's a free throw. And those are 2 things that we try to get a lot out of. We do want to run the basketball at times, and I think I've had some teams where we're able to do that. But then when we do get into the half court set, if we can get a layup or an inside out 3, that's kind of what we want. As a result, I think we pass up some shots sometimes because of it. But they kind of hear that drilled into them. We can get layups. You just look at a basketball game. The team that scores more layups and makes more free throws is going to win the game. Going to win the game every time.
Yeah. So if you're talking about, you're talking a lot about defense, about being toughness, about that work ethic. How does all that factor in a typical practice at Central High School?
Well, you ask my assistant coaches, my one assistant, my top assistant, my practices are too long. But we do get them shorter, as the season goes. But we'll go for about 2 hours, 2 hours and 30 minutes early in the season. Once we get to Christmas, we're no longer than 2 hours. And that last week where you don't want to get any injuries and you want to keep their legs fresh, we'll go for about an hour and 45. But a lot of that, sometimes I get a little bit wordy. I get talking, you get on a scout. We do scout the heck out of teams, with the way Huddle and different types of software packages are out there. We can see so much film. And that's one good thing about Illinois coaches, too. They don't most of them share film. It's not we're in a conference, we're not going to do that. It's to the point where, coaches respect one another. And if you're not going to get it from one coach, you'll go to a different coach to get that film is kind of what it is. And we do watch a lot of film, and that's why I think our defense is what it is. But at the same time, our kids buy into our scouts. We'll spend 25 minutes and a night before a game going over the opposing team's scout information, and they buy in. You got to have kids that buy in, and just some basic principles, help side, making sure they screen out, and then you got to have the horses too. You got to have guys that can play basketball, and we've been fortunate enough to have that here in the the 25 years I've been here. We've had some really good high school basketball players.
Yeah, I think that when you're talking about having eight schools that feed in and having a lot of numbers, it's good for you to have those numbers to work from and develop. But I think that you have to I just don't think you can take that for granted. You've got to be working with those kids, and like you said, you got to have a culture that they want to be part of, and keep doing things the way you want to do it.
Right. Well, and we start like the camp we run, and we've been running camps here ever since I got here. You know, they had a camp before I came, and I think we've expanded the camp a little bit more. We started the third grade, and we even bring our freshmen in, and they get a camp basketball, they get a camp pass, they get a camp shirt, and we want them to come to all our games. That's just that's just part of it, and our numbers have grown. You know, just from these 8 feeder schools, and we get a couple kids from neighboring towns, but you know, we had about 250 campers for that 5 days in June, and just kids really working hard, having a lot of fun.
I've been a fair amount of places, watched some basketballs in a lot of places, and I know I'm partial, but that Southern Illinois basketball, man, I love it. The high school level, I don't think you get the atmosphere other places like you do there.
No, I think you're right. I mean, just on the select basketball circuit, I was able to coach my son with the Illinois Bears out of Carterville. I think they're kind of stationed out of Carterville down there, and just going to different places. You know, there's just something about Illinois basketball that's special, and the history of it. You know, I mean, there's been some things where, you know, as a coach, you don't really agree with, you know, that's been placed upon you, but yet at the same time, it's still Illinois basketball. It's still something that people's goal is to get to the state tournament, and you know, we've been able to do that here as the program, you know, over the tenure I've been here, and it's just a great experience for the community and for kids. And Illinois basketball is good.
It's so much fun. I look forward to going to games every year, and it's just great. All right, Coach. I love the conversation. I love getting the insight on, you know, you've got a phenomenal program that's done really well. What did I miss? What question did I not ask you that I should have, Coach?
I don't know. I think you hit on a lot of them, you know, and, you know, if we go back to when we played college basketball, you know, we had fun. We developed relationships. There's another thing I think you got to think about. You know, I think our assistant coaches, our programs here, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, whatever it is, I think we got a group of coaches here, whether it's the head coach or whether it's the assistant coach that's in it for the right reasons. It's in it not to win games, not to win championships. It's to make people better, to make young people better, and then also develop relationships. The things that I've been able to do because of sports is just astronomical what I've been able to do. I know a lot of it has to come because, you know, you win games and you do things and you have good players, but yet at the same time, the relationships I've made, you know, whether I'm on an airplane going somewhere, whether I'm just going to a basketball game, you know, scouting, people come up to you and say, hey, you were from Oakville. What'd you think of that 1987 phantom foul call? Well, that's the gentleman I just saw this past weekend. You know, he got the foul called on him, and he can still reminisce about that, and just the memories and the connections you make. I think if you can impress that onto your players and your young people, they're going to be better off in life because of that. Because it's about relationships, it's about networking, it's about, you know, making those connections, and sports is a great avenue to do that in.
Oh, I think so too, and I think that, and it's funny that you mentioned we all want to win, but you know, not everybody's going to be on the conference tournament championship or win a title, or it's just not the way it is. And there's so much more beyond that. On so long as that you're getting the most out of yourself, your team, fostering those relationships. I agree. I can't imagine where my life would be without basketball. And it wasn't like I was that good at it. I mean, I was okay, but you know what I'm saying?
You were all right. You were all right.
Yeah, all right. But you get my point, right? Like it's given so much more back to me than I gave to Ed. I know that.
Right. Oh, for me, absolutely. You know, the opportunities just being able to raise my son and, you know, my daughter for that aspect. I won't coach my daughter in high school, but, you know, I got to coach my son, and just him growing up. You know, we won a state championship in 2012. You know, Mason was 5 years old, you know, so he got to be there as a 5-year-old on the bench. You know, he had nicknames and everything for the players back then. You know, now as a player, the leading scorer on the 2012 basketball team is my freshman basketball coach. So he gets to see that aspect of it. I got a player off my 2019 team that's going to coach the sophomores next year. Got another player off the 2012 team that's come back to help. And then my top assistant, my JV coach, who's really, really good. He was on our 2004, 2005 teams that both advanced to the Elite Eight, in those seasons. And just really good leaders, really good people. You got to surround yourself the way this game is, and the amount of work that goes into it. You just got to have good people around you, and I've been able to do that here, and the administration and the school boards allowed it to happen. So it's really an outstanding opportunity.
Yeah, you've got there at Central with you guys have a phenomenal culture and a program that, like, you came into a great situation, but you're fostering it and building it, and I think that. Like, it does so much of the heavy lifting for you, the culture, and you're not. But you're fostering it and you're using it.
I wanted to make sure I leave it better than what it was when
Absolutely.
That's what you got.
Absolutely.
That's the attitude you got to have. And, I think, there was a gentleman years and years ago that said something to our AD. He has passed on, the AD that kind of got the culture started here, said, they were doing a lot better job at Central. We've been doing the same job. It's just, we're getting we're just getting a few more athletes and the culture's better and stuff. We haven't changed as individuals or anything. It's just, kind of breeding that culture and just kind of expanding on it. It's what's happened. And one thing that I always preach to our kids too, and I'm be remiss if I don't say this, you gotta go about things with class. When I was in high school, that's all my high school basketball coach said. Do things with class, be a class act, do those type of things. And, if you act that way, I came into a program here at Central where the head coach was a class act, and I'm just trying to continue that on.
Yeah. I think you come in with all those things and all those expectations and the way you want to do things, and you just it takes time for that stuff to develop, as you mentioned, but once you've got it, you just keep it going, and it can be a special thing, and I'm sure it's a fun thing to be a part of. So,
Kenny, I always tell my kids the best part of the day is at 3:05 and we start practice, because I get to be around
Absolutely.
the best. I tell my guys. So
absolutely. Well, you're doing a great job, Coach, and I sure appreciate you coming on the show and getting the chance to talk about it.
Yeah, it was good to see you, Matt. I don't get to see you as much, and
I know.
Got to coach against your nephew, this past season. I think he's got a big future ahead of him. And, I talked to his head coach this summer. His head coach has been doing it longer than I have. It's just, the networking and things you do is that you get to be an opportunity or get to be a part of it's just awesome.
It is. It's a great, I just love I love the whole world. It's fantastic. So,
just to give you a shout out too, everything you've gone through, and to be able to do this and be a leader and give back. I mean, that's something special as well. And I know, proud of you. That's good. You had a tough battle like my wife did, and you've come out shining. That's great.
I appreciate that. It means a lot. It's I'm blessed to get to do it. It's great to talk to all the coaches and build these relationships. So yeah, I appreciate it, Shub.
You bet, Matt.
You bet. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Parents of athletes know that confidence and belief are fundamental for success. We want them to play without fear and without anxiety, but once those negative thoughts take over, it can derail years of work. Turning that anxiety into belief is similar to building strength and speed. It just takes intentional effort over time. Mental Mettle Coaching provides the individual drills needed to build the positive mindset necessary for success on the court and in life. Contact today to schedule a free coaching session and start building mental toughness in your athlete. Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle Podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle Podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time.
But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle.
So a lot of times when I speak with a coach, do an interview with them, I come up with some brand new idea, some tidbits, something I haven't thought of before that I'm like, oh, that's a great way to apply that. And I've never heard of anybody doing that. And I love it when that happens. But I didn't get that with Coach Shubert. And I almost think that's a good thing, because there was nothing that he said that I hadn't heard before doing it. But the one thing I picked up on is he is just all about putting the work in and putting the patience and just letting the hard work speak for itself. And it starts with, I mean, the fact that he spent 14 years as an assistant. I don't know how much that happens now anymore. It does some, but I think I'm sure he could have moved on and done something else, but he stuck with it. And obviously it was a good program and he was learning a lot. So he's being patient, but while he's doing that, he's getting 2 master's degrees and running his family farm. And then I think that it's a good lesson for his athletes to watch that he spent 14 years as that assistant, and then he steps in, and then it's not an accident that as a head coach he has this phenomenal record, whatever it is, 250 some wins and just 80 some losses and 9 of 11 or something conference championships. Like it's not an accident, and I think that it's a really good lesson for his athletes to put in, to see how he puts in that hard work and is patient. And it's, I don't know, it's just not, I don't know, it's just not as flashy. I think a lot of times we're always, as a coach, we're looking for the next thing that's gonna, this magic wand or this easy trick that's gonna fix it. And it doesn't really work that way. I think we have to keep putting in the hard work. And I think that when you put in the hard work, you have to be working toward what you know is right and what you are trying to accomplish. And I think that he clearly knows that and has that. And I think he gets a lot of that from the culture. The culture there at Central is fantastic. And I think that's the other thing. They're constantly working on that culture. I meant what I said, that I think that it's like this line after COVID, programs kind of went one of 2 ways on how they handled it. And some have really, a lot of programs throughout Illinois and other states have really struggled since COVID, and others have flourished since it. And he mentioned that they really went student centered and making sure that the kids were getting the most opportunities that they could, knowing that they had missed some of that, and thinking about what's best for the kids and moving forward and thinking of it through that lens. And I think that's a great mindset. And I'm sure they're keeping that after we're, several years past COVID. And why wouldn't you, if you came out of COVID and you're winning games and you're having great culture and it's going well with the parents and the players, why would you change? But I think they're aware of why that's happening and sticking with it. I also love what they're talking about. And again, this isn't a new thing. I've heard of it from other schools, but I love that they're doing a student leadership program and picking kids to be leaders. I think that's something that's not done enough. Coaches and athletic programs complain they don't have leaders anymore. And it's like they just want them to show up being leaders. And that's partly your job as a coach and as a coaching staff and as administrators and things like that, is to develop those leaders rather than just saying, oh, we need more leaders and then lament about the fact that we don't have them. They're actually creating them, picking kids and putting them in this program and letting them read books and giving them responsibilities and letting them go back to their teams and be leaders. That's how you develop leaders. You actually create them. And there you go. That's another thing that they're putting the work in. They're starting with their freshmen, putting the work in, knowing that by the time they're seniors, they're going to be leaders on their teams. And I think that's a great, again, it's that same idea. You're knowing what you want and just putting the work and effort into it and then reaping the benefits later. It's the same idea when he's talking about having the young kids coming to the games and building that culture. It's not something you develop overnight. Nothing, all this, they have this tons of this success. And I'm sure there's probably teams that they play in other districts and watch and be like, yeah, it's easy for them because I got this culture and they do this. Well, yeah, but it takes a lot of work. Culture does a lot of the heavy lifting for you once it's rolling, but if you're not careful, you can lose that culture, and they're working on it, right? So putting in the hard work and developing leaders and making sure that the culture is strong in their youth athletics, and that stuff matters. You're winning games well before kids even get to your program. That stuff really matters, and I just love how they're doing a lot of it. I love what Coach Schubert's doing it. He knows what he wants, and he sees it in his team and the way they play his team. They play like that. They play very defense oriented and get after it, and they work really hard, and they're very very good teammates. And it's not stuff you develop overnight, but you put in the effort to get there, and I think you just develop it. And he's a great role model. Like, again, it's hard for a lot of times coaches, we want our kids to work hard, but maybe we aren't working as hard as they are. And it's, they see that. And I don't think you're going to have anybody complaining, any of his players complaining about Coach Shubert. He's teaching these dual credit science classes, working on his farm and doing the head coaching job and working at that. And he's a great role model for him. And I think it shows in the way his teams play and also in the success that they have. So nothing flashy about the program. They're just putting in the work, having patience, and then rolling out wins, right? So it's a good lesson. If you're not there in your culture, you got to start early. You got to start now, and knowing that it may take a few years, several years, but if it's something you want to put the time and effort into, it'll pay off someday. And I know that's not a quick answer, but there is no quick answer. So I think that's the answer. So again, great interview with Coach Shubert. I enjoyed catching up with an old teammate. That's always fun too. So other than that, as I said early on, if you have any questions for me or you're interested in any of my services, hit me up. I do the student athlete coaching, the team coaching, and the professional development. I'll do all those things. I'd love to answer any questions about those and how I can help you develop culture in your athlete, your team, and your school, all those things. But for now, I've been your host, Coach Matt Thomann. This is the Mental Mettle Podcast. And always remember, forge your metal.